Let me tell you something that truly worries me. Just last week, a 67-year-old woman walked into my office. She was graceful, smart, and had a very organized life. Then she said something that completely shocked me. She said, "I have fallen in love and I feel like I'm losing control of my life." And in that exact moment, I realized something very serious. Falling in love after the age of 60 is not the same anymore. I'm not talking about sweet romance or beautiful fairy tales. I am talking about real risks that almost no one wants to talk about. Because when you have built a whole life by this age, with strong routines and hard-earned independence, love can hit like an emotional storm that destroys everything in its path. And here is the most disturbing part. Most people over 60 keep making the exact same dangerous mistakes. Mistakes that cost them their freedom, their mental peace, and in the worst situations, even their life savings. But before I go further, if this topic feels important to you, please like this video right now. And if you want to receive more content that can protect you during this stage of life and help you make smarter choices, subscribe to the channel. This type of information can make a huge difference, not just for you, but also for someone you care about. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share today could save you from one of the most painful experiences you can face at this age. And no, I am not exaggerating. Let's go directly into the truth. The first dangerous problem of love after 60 has a very clear form. Many people confuse loneliness with love. Listen very carefully, because this part is extremely important. When you reach 60, there is a big chance that you have experienced deep loss. Maybe you lost a partner. Maybe you went through a divorce after many long years. Or your children may have moved away and built their own lives, and suddenly your home feels too silent and too empty. This loneliness, this emptiness, feels like an open wound inside your heart. And when someone appears who gives you attention, who listens to you, who makes you feel seen again, your brain does something very dangerous. It labels that feeling of relief as love. But many times it is not real love. Let me be very honest. After many years of work, I have watched kind, intelligent, and successful people fall into horrible relationships simply because they could not tell the difference between wanting company and true love. And do you know what is the scariest part? This confusion after 60 causes much more damage than it does at 20 or 30. Why? Because time feels very different. You begin to feel a deep urgency. You start thinking, "I don't have much time left." You say to yourself, "This might be my last chance to feel happy." And this dangerous thought makes you skip the important steps. It makes you ignore clear warning signs. It pushes you to move emotionally much faster than you should. I have seen people start living together after less than 3 months. I have seen people mix their money after 6 months. And after 1 year, they sit in front of me completely broken, asking how their life turned into such a mess. And then comes the truth that most people don't want to hear. Loneliness is healed through real human connection, not always through romance. Your need to feel close can be satisfied through strong friendships, social activities, group events, community help, or returning to old hobbies and passions you once loved. But when you make one person the only cure for your loneliness, you are not building a relationship from love. You are building it from dependence. And emotional dependence after 60 is very dangerous because it hides itself. It hides itself as complete openness. It hides itself as the feeling that you have finally found your soulmate. It hides itself as the idea that you must enjoy every moment you have left in life. But it gets even darker. Let's talk about the second danger, the pressure of time that twists your judgment. When you are 25 and a relationship ends, you think, "I have so much time ahead of me." You heal, you learn, and you move forward. But after 60, your mind whispers something very different. This is your last chance. If you miss it, you will grow old alone. This thought, this deep fear of endless loneliness, is one of the strongest emotional traps that exist. And I want you to understand something important. This fear is not silly, it is very human. The thought of being alone in older age truly scares most people. But here is where the real danger starts. Decisions made from fear almost always lead to pain. Let me tell you about a man who was 64 years old. He was retired and had lost his wife 3 years earlier. His adult children lived far away in other cities. He met a woman at a social dance event. She was charming, friendly, and full of life. She brought color into his quiet and predictable world. After 2 weeks, they were seeing each other every single day. After 1 month, she practically moved into his home. After 3 months, he asked her to marry him. His children warned him to slow down and told him that he barely knew her. But he replied, "You are young, you have time, I don't. I will not waste the rest of my life waiting." 6 months later, already married, he discovered that she had large debts that she had hidden, and she expected him to pay them because she believed that is what marriage meant. Her outgoing nature also meant many expensive outings with friends that were paid from his money. But the most painful part was not the money. The worst part was the emotional pressure every time he tried to set limits. She would say things like, "You don't love me anymore. You regret marrying me. Maybe I should leave and let you be alone again." And that was the perfect trap. Terrified of returning to loneliness, he kept giving in. He lost his peace of mind. He lost his independence. He damaged his relationship with his children, and he lost a large part of his savings, all because he made choices from the feeling of now or never. But here is something almost nobody talks about. This pressure of time is mostly an illusion. Yes, an illusion. The idea that after 60 your time to find love has run out is a thought built by fear. The real truth is very different. More and more people are finding meaningful relationships later in life. With modern ways to meet people and longer life expectancy, the chances for connection are higher than ever. But when you convince yourself that this is your last chance, your brain enters a mode of scarcity. And in that state, you begin to accept what you should never accept. You tolerate what should never be tolerated. You ignore clear red flags, because when fear controls the mind, any company feels better than being alone. But this is not true. This is a dangerous lie. A bad relationship after 60 does not just make you unhappy. It can slowly destroy your health. The constant stress of a toxic bond weakens the body, increases the risk of heart problems, and harms mental well-being. Being alone is far better than being trapped in a painful relationship, especially after 60. And it goes even deeper. There is a third danger, even more hidden than the rest. We need to speak about something many people feel ashamed to admit, but is extremely important to understand. And this part could change the way you see love forever at this stage of life. Money and wealth in relationships later in life is a subject many people feel uncomfortable discussing. And before you think this sounds cold or materialistic, let me be very clear. This is not about being selfish, calculating, or suspicious. This is about protecting yourself. Because here is the hard truth. After 60, you usually have something valuable to protect. Maybe it is a house you paid off after many years of hard work. Maybe it is your retirement savings. Maybe it is investments or wealth you want to leave to your children. And sadly, there are people who deliberately look for relationships with older adults for financial reasons. Yes, it really is that serious. I am not saying that everyone who approaches you after 60 has bad intentions. Many people are genuine, but emotional and financial predators do exist. And after 60, you can become an easier target. Why? First, because you often have resources. Second, because loneliness makes you emotionally more fragile. And third, because your generation was raised to be more trusting and less suspicious than younger people who grew up in a digital world filled with scams and deception. Let me share a story. A woman, 66 years old, retired university teacher, a stable pension, and her own home in a good neighborhood. She met a man in a small cafe. He was polite, kind, and seemed well educated. He sent her flowers, called her every day, and spoke in beautiful words. She felt alive again. After years of being alone, she finally felt seen and valued. After 4 months of dating, he told her that he was having temporary money problems. His business had failed. He had debts, but he said everything would be fine very soon because a new project was almost finished. She, deeply in love, gave him money. She told herself, this is just temporary. He would do the same for me. 2 months later, he asked for more money to finally complete the project. She took a loan against her own home, and you can imagine what happened next. He disappeared. She lost her house. At 66 years old, she had to move into a small apartment, start working again, and face the painful disappointment of her children who had warned her many times. But the worst part was not only the money. The worst part was what happened inside her. She kept asking herself, how could I be so foolish? I am an educated, intelligent person. How could I let this happen to me? But she was not foolish. She was human. Love, especially when mixed with loneliness and deep desire for closeness, clouds judgment. It makes you want to believe. It makes you ignore contradictions. It makes you explain away strange behavior. And this is the most dangerous part. Predators know exactly how to spot emotional weakness. They know what words to use. They know how to make someone who felt invisible feel special again. They know how to create fast, artificial intimacy. They know how to start with small favors that slowly grow into serious exploitation. And this is not always about direct money. Manipulation can be much more subtle. Maybe he asks you to transfer part of a property into his name to make things easier. Maybe he tries to convince you to change your will. Maybe he slowly isolates you from your family by saying, they don't understand our love. Maybe he moves into your home and doesn't contribute financially. Maybe he uses your credit cards or asks you to sign for his debts. And the most shocking part, these demands almost always come wrapped in the language of love. If you really loved me, I thought we were a team. Don't you trust me? So what should you do? Become paranoid? Trust no one? No. But a healthy level of self-protection is absolutely necessary. Never mix finances before you truly know someone. And truly know means at least 1 full year of a stable, consistent relationship. Speak with your children or trusted friends before making big financial decisions involving a partner. Keep separate bank accounts. Always protect your property and savings legally. And if you are thinking about marriage or living together, consider a legal agreement beforehand. It may not sound romantic, but it is intelligent, because real love respects your independence and your financial safety. If someone pressures you, manipulates your emotions, or makes you feel guilty for protecting your resources, that person is not loving you, they are using you. But there is another danger that very few people talk about, and it is extremely important: the conflict between two fully lived life stories. This is something that does not matter much at 20, but at 60 it can become enormous. At that age, both people come with decades of experiences, wounds, habits, and deep beliefs. You are no longer blank pages. You are complete books filled with powerful chapters. Some chapters are beautiful, some are painful, but all of them shaped who you are today. And when two complete books try to become one, conflict becomes almost impossible to avoid. Think about this. At 60, you usually have fixed routines. You wake up at a certain hour, you eat the same kind of breakfast, you have your own personal spaces and daily rituals. You have adult children who are part of your regular life. Maybe you have grandchildren you see on weekends. You have friendships that have lasted for decades. You have strong political opinions, moral values, or religious beliefs. You have your own way of managing money, organizing your home, and choosing how you spend your vacations. Now imagine another person entering this carefully built system. That person brings their own habits, their own children, their own friends, their own beliefs, and their own lifestyle. It is not simple. It is not small. It is a huge emotional and practical challenge. Not because love is impossible, but because combining two complete worlds is far more difficult than when two young people are just starting their lives. It requires patience. It requires self-awareness. It requires flexibility. And above all, it requires the courage to let go of certain old patterns without losing your true self. What feels small at 20 becomes a huge wall at 60. Again, at this age, both people bring decades of experiences, emotional scars, habits, and worldviews. No one is an empty page anymore. Each person is a full book filled with intense stories, some happy, some painful, but all of them forming who they have become. And when two full books try to turn into one story, tension is almost guaranteed. Imagine this clearly. At 60, a person has strong fixed habits. They wake up at the same hour every day. They eat the same meals. They have their own familiar spaces and rituals. They have adult children deeply involved in their lives, maybe grandchildren who visit regularly, friendships built over long decades, deep political, moral, and spiritual beliefs, clear ways of handling money, setting up their home, and planning vacations. And then suddenly another person steps into this well-constructed life with their own habits, their own children, their own social circles, their own beliefs, their own way of living. The clash can be very strong. One strong example of this is a man who was 68 years old and had lost his wife years earlier. She was 65, divorced. They met through a book club, slowly fell in love, and decided to move in together. In the beginning, everything felt magical. There was laughter, shared stories, warm meals, and the comfort of not being alone. But after 3 months, small frictions began to appear. He liked to eat dinner early, watch the evening news at 6:30, and was in bed by 9. She preferred to eat around 9 o'clock, stayed awake until midnight, and liked watching series before sleep. He was very clean and precise about order. She was more relaxed and comfortable leaving things around the house. But the real problems were not the small habits. They were much deeper. His son visited every Sunday with the grandchildren, and for him this time was sacred and untouchable. For him, it was family tradition. For her, it felt like they never had time alone because family was always present. She met her friends 2 times a week, which he slowly began to see as rejection. He felt that a couple should spend most of their free time together. Then came the most sensitive area of all. He was conservative in his views and she was more progressive. At first they avoided these topics, but soon every conversation felt like walking through a minefield. What happened next is very common. Both tried to change the other. He wanted her to adjust to his routines. She wanted him to be more flexible and spontaneous, but neither wanted to bend because both felt deep inside, "At my age, I am not going to change." And this is the real problem of love after 60. You need flexibility exactly at a time in life when you often have the least of it, not because people are stubborn, but because the mind has formed solid patterns over many years. Identity feels fixed. Habits are deeply rooted. Real change takes long, conscious effort, and many people at this stage either cannot or no longer want to invest that kind of energy. Then the silent struggle begins. Resentment starts to grow. Thoughts of the peaceful life they had before begin to appear. Comparisons with their previous quiet, independent life slowly take over, and what started as love slowly turns into a daily life filled with tension, sharp words, and small emotional wounds. I have seen couples who became physically ill because of this stress: anxiety, sleepless nights, digestive problems, constant tension in the body, the pressure of trying to merge 2 full lives without the tools or the willingness to truly adjust can be overwhelming. And now comes something that very few people say aloud. You do not have to live together. Yes, that is true. In the modern world, you can have a deep, stable, and meaningful relationship after 60 without living under the same roof every day. There is even a term for it: living apart but together. Separate homes but connected hearts. Both people keep their own space, their independence, their routines. They meet often, share what matters, care for each other, but at the end of the day, each person returns to their own peaceful retreat. And for many people over 60, this form of relationship is actually perfect. It protects the mystery. It reduces daily conflict. It respects individuality. Society likes to tell us that true love must mean moving in together, that living separately means a lack of commitment. That idea is wrong. It is only an old cultural pressure. Real connection is not shown by sharing a roof. It is shown by respect, support, trust, and emotional presence. But there is an even more sensitive area that belongs among the greatest risks of love after 60. Sexuality later in life and how it can become an emotional trap. We have to speak clearly about something society likes to hide. People over 60 are still sexual beings. They still desire closeness. They still feel physical attraction. This desire does not disappear with age. It only changes shape. But when someone has gone for many years, sometimes even decades, without physical contact, returning to intimacy can feel overwhelming. And this is where great danger can hide. A person can confuse the strength of physical connection with real love. Let me explain in simple terms. If someone has been alone for many years, if their last intimate experience feels like a distant memory, and suddenly someone touches them again, looks at them with desire, makes them feel attractive again, the brain becomes flooded with powerful chemicals. The body releases powerful bonding hormones. This chemical rush can make a person believe they have found the love of their life. But in reality, it is often not love. It is the deep relief of a basic human need that has been asleep for a very long time. I have heard many people say, "I have never felt anything like this. This must be true love." And the honest response is usually, how do you know it is love, and not simply the return of intimacy after a long emotional drought? This difference is extremely important, because when you make life-changing decisions like moving in together, getting married, or sharing your savings only based on the power of physical connection, you are building your future on something very fragile. Sexuality is beautiful, it is natural, it is a deep part of being human, but it is not enough on its own. And after 60, confusing desire with love can cause you to attach yourself to people who are emotionally or morally not right for you. There is another part of this story that almost no one speaks about openly: the pressure to perform. Yes, after 60, bodies change naturally. That is normal. But many people suddenly feel they must perform, must not disappoint, must prove that they are still attractive. This pressure can make people accept treatment they would never have tolerated before. I have seen women stay silent in the face of disrespect simply because they say, "At least I feel desired again." I have seen men stay in clearly harmful relationships because they think, "She makes me feel young again." Physical intimacy can turn into a golden trap, sweet, comforting, pleasing, but dangerously binding. A trap that keeps you tied to relationships that offer very little emotional safety or real care. But here is the truth that can set you free. You deserve a relationship where everything is aligned: respect, honest communication, emotional support, true compatibility, and yes, also physical joy. You do not have to choose between love and desire. You do not have to accept "at least someone touches me." You deserve a connection that is whole, honest, and balanced. Because when you settle for less, you do not only deny yourself a healthy relationship, you also close the door to a love that could lift you up instead of slowly draining you. Fear of losing physical affirmation can make people tolerate what should never be tolerated. I have seen women endure emotional cruelty just to feel wanted again. I have seen men stay in harmful situations because being close to someone makes them feel alive and young. Physical closeness can become a golden but very dangerous addiction. Pleasant, comforting, but binding in a way that traps you in relationships that do not feed your soul. And this is where freedom lives. You deserve a connection where everything fits together: respect, communication, emotional safety, true compatibility, and physical pleasure that feels safe and mutual. You do not have to choose between love and desire. You do not have to settle for "at least someone is here." You deserve something complete. You deserve something honest. You deserve something balanced. Because if you accept less than that, you are not just missing out on a healthy relationship. You are blocking the path to a love that strengthens you instead of slowly exhausting you. She was 65 and divorced. They met in a book group, fell in love, and decided to live together. At the start, everything felt magical. But after 3 months, tension started to grow. He ate dinner early, watched the news at 6:30, and went to bed by 9. She ate at 9 o'clock, stayed awake until midnight, and watched her favorite shows. He was neat and precise. She was more easygoing and left things lying around. But the real problems were deeper. His son visited every Sunday with the grandchildren. For him, it was sacred time. She felt they never had time alone because family was always present. She met her friends twice a week, which he took as rejection. He believed that as a couple they should spend more time together. Then came the most sensitive issue. He was conservative, she was progressive. At first, they avoided the topic, but soon every